I actually used this tray earlier in a project, which was that mirror. It is the Stockholm 2017 tray, and I used some of these hairpin legs that I found on Amazon. So all you're going to need in addition to this is some strong bond adhesive. So I actually flipped this tray over, and I'm going to use it as the tabletop for our little table that we're creating. This is going to be kind of like a little side table, and I suggest using E6000 to adhere this leg to the bottom, and also go back in and add E6000 into all of those holes at a generous amount. That way, once it's dry, it almost acts as a nail, and that really finishes off this project. Super simple and easy side table recreation. Now this is a super simple way how to create your very own kind of bar cart or little kitchen island section for a small apartment. So I went ahead and I picked up this Mulger little rolling unit, and I realized that I wanted to have it kind of have black accents along with the wood accents that it's originally made from. So I kind of mapped out where I wanted my black to be on top of this little reference drawing, and I also grabbed some of these hooks as well, along with some black spray paint. So I brought all of the pieces outside that I wanted black, and I gave them a nice coat of the matte farmhouse black spray paint, which is my favorite color from Rust-Oleum, and I did it on all of the sides. This was so satisfying to spray paint. I also went ahead and grabbed some of these little wooden trays, which I used on a former project as well. I used them as the legs once again, so just making sure to flip them in all directions and give them a nice generous coat of the black spray paint. And once they have fully dried, you can go ahead and reassemble your entire piece. What I did was I just went ahead and followed the instructions, reassembled it as is, and I just love the details of black. On the bottom of this piece, instead of using the rolling wheels, I actually went ahead and secured on those new legs and added a couple of hooks to the side. That way we could hang on a little cutting board. This was also from IKEA. I screwed a couple of hooks into the cutting board. That way you can kind of have it hang off the side. And I thought this was the perfect little bar cart addition to any small space. For our next project, I wanted to share with you guys how to create your very own knobs using clay and also these really cute photo holders. So the first thing I did was I kind of created a chunky ball, and I just honestly inserted a screw on the inside, and this is going to be a knob for a dresser. I'm going to create a triangle shaped one as well. And then right here, I'm kind of just creating a disc and using a popsicle stick to create a slice down the center. This is going to be our little photo holder or memento holder. So you're going to want to go ahead and bake these, and once they come out of the oven, you could just simply paint them as you'd like. I use my brass gilding paint on the round knob to kind of give it a hammered look, and then on the smaller one I painted it pink, added some white details to give it that ceramic vibe, and last but not least I just left the actual picture holder completely raw. I personally am not a great painter, but I can definitely do an abstract art piece every now and then. So I picked up this wooden canvas and I started off by painting the entire base of the canvas with this cream colored paint. It kind of has like a little bit of an orangey peachy tone to it, which I love. And next what I went ahead and did was actually go in and mark around the edge about a 1/4 inch in. That way I could tape it off, because I'm going to be adding a yellow kind of squiggled section to the bottom here. And what I mean by that is I'm going to kind of create a line that's a bit more organic and free flowing towards the top there. This is kind of emulated off of a mid-century art piece that I've seen. So on the left side, I'm using some black dots to kind of just create a abstract pattern. And then on the right side, I'm filling in all the blank space with some lines. Now on the far left side, I kind of messed up here. I did too many of those dots. So I just went back in and kind of just covered them up with our original cream colored paint. And that finishes off your wall art. This candlestick DIY is actually one of my most recreated projects on my YouTube channel, and all you have to do for this is actually fill up a pitcher or something pretty tall that you could submerge your full candlestick in with some lukewarm water, and you're going to let your candles sit for about 15 minutes or so. Once they come out of that water, they're actually extremely malleable. They almost are like a wet noodle in a sense that you have a little bit of time to shape them however you would like to. So it's really fun to be able to create these very organic and abstract shapes with your taper candles, and it just makes them a little bit more interesting. You can even go in with a rolling pin like I did with this one, flatten down the wax a little bit, it's not sticky at all, and then go in and twist it to create a funky twisted candle. So there are a ton of different alterations that you could do for this particular project. I also went ahead and kind of created this looped candle. And lastly, I used 2 purple candles to kind of create this standing, it's called a duo candle, where basically the bottom base is kind of twisted and then it has this really cool kind of double-sided candle, I guess you could say. So I went ahead and I tried to melt them together, but it honestly didn't work. I ended up just kind of gluing them together with some hot glue and finishing it off with a little bit of wax. And that is how I finished off all of these really cute abstract taper candles. This next project was one that I kind of just did for fun with materials that I already owned. I used one of the little woven macrame baskets from IKEA along with the round circle object, which is this one right here. I've used this in a previous DIY as well. And I went ahead and I constructed it. And what I kind of realized I could do with these 2 IKEA items was actually create a basketball hoop, which sounds strange, but I thought it was really cute for like a little boy's room or something like that. So I went ahead and I cut away the mesh from the bag. So we just had this nice little like layer of mesh that I could then use to create my very own net. So what I basically did to create this net was I went ahead and I added a little dab of hot glue every now and then, and I just adhered it around the actual ring of the little Lindrande piece from IKEA. And once it was fully secured around on the back side, I did adhere it all the way on the back, and I glued together the net kind of on the back side because it was going to be open on the back side. So I glued that together as well. I then went ahead and cut away any excess material that I didn't need to use anymore. And I grabbed that little rimming that was actually the original handle of the bag, and I just glued it onto the bottom there just to make it seem a little bit more secure and overall a bit more finished. So once I had that glued on, I was able to attach my very own hook on the back side, and this is how I created a little basketball hoop for a little boy's room or anywhere you want to add this. Now this next project was a super cute idea, and I'm going to share with you guys how I would probably do it a little bit differently. So I started off with this plate holder from IKEA, and I cut one side off of the plate holder so that I had the little middle stick sections attached to one side still. So as you can see, this is the piece that I'm going to be using. But something I did for this project, I don't know why I did this, but I just glued it down with some strong bond adhesive when I definitely should have drilled some holes in there and kind of lodged the wood pieces in there so it was a bit more secure, along with some glue as well. Now these shelf brackets I picked up at the dollar store, and I spray painted them with my matte farmhouse black spray paint. And once I had those done, I went ahead and I also sprayed 2 of these little hooks. And my intention for this being used was to actually hang wine glasses upside down on the little dish holder, and then on top you can add wine bottles and anything you want to add on the left side on the hooks. This is another project that I actually created a couple of years back, but it is still so cute. I wanted to share it with you guys once again. So I found this cotton-filled cording. It was a very weird kind of like cotton-filled fiber mesh strand. I don't exactly know what it was, but it made for a perfect base for any coaster. So I kind of spiraled it up into these coaster shapes, and then I wanted to add a little bit of detail with a needle and thread. So I grabbed these tiny little copper seed beads and I strung them on my needle and thread, kind of just transferring them down and actually gluing them in the divot of our spiral. So I just glued these all the way around in our spiral. This was inspired by an Anthropology coaster set that I had seen that cost over $100. I wanted to recreate my own, and that's exactly what I did. For our next project, I started off with this 14-inch round wood mirror, and I'm going to use my chipboard here, and I'm going to be cutting it down to be 12 inches wide, and I actually ended up having to add 2 more inches since it is 14 inches and about 6 inches tall. So I glued and adhered together 2 pieces of chipboard and just added a little bit of additional glue on the back side to make sure it was nice and secured. But essentially this is actually going to be fully wrapped in this yarn material, so there is no reason for it to be like extra strong or anything, as it will be glued down to the mirror once it is done. So all I did for this next process was just literally wrapped the entire piece in this burgundy toned yarn, and I went ahead and I set aside our yarn section, and I grabbed this gold washi tape from my stash, and I'm going to be wrapping this around the entire exterior of the mirror on the front side to almost make it look like there's a welded gold frame on the outside of this mirror. It just adds a little bit more detail in my opinion, so I added that on, and then towards the bottom half I didn't add it because I knew that I was going to be covering it with our little yarn wrapped section here. So that is exactly what I did. I placed down our little yarn wrap section, and then I also went in and added this little wood strip, which I had in my stash, onto the top there. So I cut that off and I adhered it down with some Fabri-Tac adhesive, coated it in that same exact gold finish tape, and then glued it right at the top there, and that finished off our little wall mirror. You can add a hook on the back side if you want to hang it up, just like I did with a little bit of macrame cord, and that finished off this project. This next project blew up on TikTok, and I knew I wanted to recreate it here on my channel, so I actually grabbed 2 different gallons of soda. This is actually just ginger ale gallons, and I went ahead and I cut the tops off with an X-Acto knife, and I grabbed this fairy light pack. Now, this fairy light pack was from Amazon, and if you plan on running this all the time, I do suggest getting one that plugs directly into the wall as opposed to a battery-operated one, which you're gonna kind of have to hide the cord down the wall if necessary. So what I ended up doing was just using the battery-powered one. I'm just gonna use this on more special occasions. So I went ahead and I glued the battery pack on the inside and glued the 2 pieces together, and then I added a string which is going to be used for hanging it up. I suggest gluing down the string first rather than adding the polyfill, because the string honestly is kind of hard to find once you add all of that polyfill, so make sure to add your string first and then go ahead and just apply clumps of this polyfill material, which is essentially what you use to like stuff a doll or stuff a stuffed animal with, or a pillow. I just glued this on around the outside. And a little tip for you guys that I learned from somebody who actually creates these is to use hairspray to make sure that your polyfill stays together. So you can spray hairspray on it as if it's actual hair, and it will kind of make it stay together a bit more.